name is Kerry Abercrombie and I am the Curriculum Development Officer for Digital Learning at Falkirk Council. You should hopefully see there on the screen my contact details if you need to get in touch with me, and please do feel free to do so. As part of this introduction, I'm going to put my hands up straight away and say that I am not an expert in play. I'm actually a secondary school English and media teacher by trade, and you might wonder what has brought me then to delivering a session on play. But this is something that I really wanted to do, because not only have I been raised by an early years educator, but I am also in a family full of them. I am in fact the only educator in my family who is not an early years specialist. Now, despite that, I am a huge advocate for play. I always have been. And if I move on to the next slide, you'll no doubt all be familiar with this image, and in particular this article from the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, Article 31, which is of course the right to rest, play, culture and the arts. And as you'll be aware, every child has a right to these things. Now, obviously, as a media teacher, I was big on the cultural and the creative activities. However, I will point out that the UNCRC does define a child as anyone under the age of 18. So even our oldest children, the kind of children that I would maybe be more familiar with working with, also have a right to play, which is something that I think is often forgotten. So that's me, that's what I'm all about. As I say, I'm not an expert in play, but hopefully some of the things we're going to talk about today and about the digital tools, and specifically the digital tools relating to play, will strike a chord. And if we combine the research and the points I'm making and the things I'm going to show you with your expertise in play, early years pedagogy and your own settings, hopefully we'll be able to come up with some wonderfully rich digital play experiences for our children. So looking at this image then, I put it to you, and you can feel free to disagree with me, but I put it to you that there's nothing in this picture that you wouldn't have on the floor in your setting. And this is how I would like you to picture digital tools, because when I'm talking about digital tools, I'm not talking about using an iPad to watch a video or using an iPad to play a game. Those things have their place. Games and videos are fine and all, but there is a potential in digital play far beyond simply sort of earning points for correctly matched number bonds, for example, or clicking on the missing words to complete a sentence. If we move beyond those basic things that we're used to seeing children use devices for, that's when we can get into some really rich digital play and learning experiences. So everything in this picture represents either something a user and their iPad can do, can make, or that can be used alongside. And if we think about the digital tools available to us as more akin to their physical counterparts, it perhaps allows us to think of digital play in a different way. So it's not just about what I think today though. What does the research say? Now, don't worry, I am not going to give you a whole bunch of reading to go away and do. I'm just going to give you the highlights. And there are 5 key things that I would like to pull out. Now, some of these are from specific studies on digital play, and some of them are from studies about children's use of technology more generally. So number 1 then, digital play allows children to explore things they don't have access to in their real life, such as flying in space, going under the sea, or visiting other countries. Now, we all know that times are tight, budgets are minuscule. There are lots that we would love to do with our children that perhaps we can't because of money, but also because of geography, or because of, the safety concerns about sending a child into space. Incorporating digital tools into our play perhaps then allows for some extra scaffolding or help in that imagination department, and in allowing children to explore things that they're interested in beyond the confines of the 4 walls of the nursery classroom. Number 2 then, iPad provides opportunities for interacting with many great apps, as well as exploring photography, video or music creation. And this is something that we're going to touch on pretty heavily later on. But it is so easy and it has so many uses both within play and out with play-based learning. And it's particularly useful when it comes to involving children in documenting the experiences that they are having in our settings. Number 3 then, smart toys provide inspiration for both play and learning. Children can interact with digital assistants such as Siri by asking for jokes, songs, or answers to questions. Robotic toys, augmented reality toys, and coding toys engage children actively and remove the sedentary concerns some have around too much screen time. That idea of screen time is something that we're going to come back to in just a little minute. Number 4 of 5, just in case you've just joined us, digital play is often accompanied with regular play, known as hybrid play, which allows children to extend their creativity in new ways. And research shows that children don't actually differentiate between digital and non-digital play in the same way that adults do. And this one I find particularly interesting because, of course, we have to give a name to distinguish between digital play and creative play and locomotor play and loose parts play and imaginative play and mastery play and all the other different types of play. But to children, play is just play. And I think that if we kind of think about it in that way as well, that can maybe be quite a liberating thing, particularly when we're thinking about incorporating the use of digital tools into play environments. Finally then, number 5, and this is a really, really important point, it should be noted that while there are benefits to digital play, it is necessary for adults to monitor children as they interact with digital toys, especially ones that connect to the internet. I don't think that I'm telling you anything new here. Safety is absolutely paramount. What I would perhaps also add to this is there is a growing body of research which suggests that digital play is best when it is scaffolded in some way. So just allowing free playing on a digital device is not necessarily as effective or as productive as scaffolded, well thought out digital play experiences are. But I think that makes sense, right? Because that's true for lots of play. Like there's a reason why your settings are set up the way they are. There's a reason why you put certain things in tough trays in certain areas of the environment, why the objects that you choose for loose parts play are chosen. And I think that has to be the same of designing a sort of digital play experience or environment. We have to give those opportunities the same thought and consideration. Now, coming back then to that idea of screen time, there are two myths or pieces of received wisdom that I would like to challenge today. And for some of you, I totally understand that this might be difficult. Like, please, please, please just hear me out, right? I would just like to offer a different perspective on these dominant discourses that come up when people discuss children and technology. And the first one is this screen time thing, right? Now, nobody is suggesting that children should be on screens all the time. Absolutely not. And I need to make that really, really clear because I can't have you go away from this session thinking that that's what I have said. There's lots of evidence, and it's growing all the time, to suggest that it's not actually the screen itself that is the problem. It is not a dangerous thing. It's nothing more than an object in many respects. In the same way that telly is or was. By the way, people have been having this argument, this same debate, for years and years and years. It was happened in the 1960s with television. We've had it more recently around the debate about video games. It's not anything new. The research suggests that what actually makes a difference is how you use your technology. So it's an argument of creators versus consumers. If you're using a device to simply consume content, then of course there's going to be detrimental effects. I think a lot of us on this call will well recognise some of these detrimental effects on ourselves. Doom scrolling is a word that became popular during the pandemic, and it's something that I still now catch myself doing, just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through Instagram, looking at pictures and videos. Now, nobody, I think, would argue that that is a rich learning experience. It does something to your brain and to your body that isn't a good thing. However, if we're using technology to create, then that's a different story. We're employing all sorts of different skills, from artistic creativity skills, problem solving skills, communication skills, decision making skills. The list goes on and on and on, as long as we are an active participant in what we are doing. I would say when we're thinking about digital play, the main question is thinking about, are we setting up our children to be consumers, or are we setting them up to be creators with the activities that we are going to facilitate for them? The next one then is the idea of digital natives versus digital immigrants. Now, digital natives is a term that was coined in 2001 by an academic called Prensky, and it has remained a dominant ideology when we're talking about technologies. Now, if you've not heard of this before, this is the idea that children born in the digital age with technology all around them are digital natives, and therefore they know exactly how to use it. It comes naturally to them because it's all they've ever known. Whereas digital immigrants are people who have not grown up with the types of technology that we have now, and therefore they're having to sort of navigate this brave new world, if you like. The images here, I think, I've chosen on purpose because I think that they kind of showcase what most people think of when they think of digital natives and digital immigrants. So we've got the children all happy and smiling, absolutely loving it, and the adults, a mixture of emotions, but slightly less enthused, let's say, a little bit of frustration, maybe, not being quite so sure of themselves, lack of confidence, etc., etc. What I would like to bring to your attention is a couple of academics called Brown and Zernowitz. And in 2010, they critiqued this notion of digital natives in an article called Digital Natives: Beyond Digital Apartheid Towards a Digital Democracy. Now, you might have guessed from the title that this study was conducted in South Africa. And what that brings to the table is a really interesting perspective on the connotations around the words native and immigrant. So, as they said in the study, with those words are the implications that people are born into something that determines them and something that they cannot change. And I think that idea in any context is quite a dangerous route of thinking to go down. I think we have to be a little bit more fluid and dynamic in the way that we conceptualize digital skills and who has them. So they prefer to think of the differences as describing them in terms of experience of and access to digital technologies, as opposed to this sort of generational age marker, which puts you in a specific group based on nothing but the year you were born. And this has actually been proven time and time again in research that generational age is not actually one of the main key factors that determines or predicts someone's skill level with technology. Instead, it's the frequency of use and the experience that they have built up over time, which is a better indicator of whether or not someone is likely to be confident and proficient with technology. Now, I understand that many of you might feel like children know more than you when it comes to technology. I would argue that's not true, but what I would ask you is to think really, really carefully about saying that to a child. And the reason I say that is because if children hear time and time again, you know more than me, you know more than me, you're the expert, you know more than me about that stuff, from the responsible adult in their life, what might happen in the future if that child runs into some trouble or some challenges online that compromise their safety? They are potentially then less likely to turn to the responsible adults in their life if all they've heard from the responsible adults in their life is, oh, I don't know as much about all that as you do. So I think we have to at least pretend and put on a little bit of a play act and make out that we're confident and that we do know what we're talking about, even if that's not always the case. And I'm not saying that we have to actually know everything. That's not possible. I'm just saying that we have to work hard to build that trust between children and ourselves as professionals. Trust that we do know what we're speaking about and that we can help them if they need it, and we have the ability to keep them as safe as possible. Now, I know that some of you, even though I've just said that, are still like, listen, Kerry, the kids do know more than me. What I would like you to do, excuse me, is take a look at this picture and think about whether it looks familiar to you or not. Now, usually people would laugh when we show them something like this, because this is what children do when they get hold of an iPad. They fill it up with stuff, pictures usually. Now, unless your camera roll on your phone looks like this, I'm telling you now, you know more than a child about using technology. And you definitely know more than them about play pedagogies, about designing learning experiences for children. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And I sometimes think the reason that we get so caught up in thinking about our own skills versus the skills of the children is that there's so much more expectation on us. We're trying to juggle curricular pressures, we're trying to juggle benchmarks, we're trying to juggle policy, we're trying to juggle all sorts of things on a professional level. And this reminds me of a character that you might be familiar with. And this is, hopefully you'll recognise her, Louisa from Encanto, as if people who work with small children have never seen Encanto. So hopefully you remember her. She's the strong sister who carries all the sort of pressures of the family. And I think this quote from her musical number actually says quite a lot about where many of us might be on our journey with technology and learning. If we could just shake off that weight of expectation for a little while, would that free some room up for joy and relaxation or simple pleasure? And I guess that's my challenge to you when we leave each other tonight, is to try and shake off some of that weight of expectation and give yourself permission to experiment and to relax into it and find some simple ways to use it and to bring joy to the process of incorporating digital into play. And if we do that, we might well find that we come to be a little bit more like the other sister, Isabel. Now, she's the one who is getting excited and getting interested at the possibilities of what she can do. A recognition that it doesn't have to be perfect. She just has to give it a try. And essentially what I'm saying is, you playing with digital technologies yourself is as big a part of this as children playing with them. No one is expecting perfection. You might need to muddle through a little bit. It might be a process of trial and error to get the right thing for your learning environment or for a particular group of children. But the sooner we can get past being Louisa and getting a little bit more into the mindset of Isabel, the sooner we are on our way. Now, I totally appreciate that if you've never seen Encanto, that probably made no sense. But hopefully the underlying message is clear. So we're going to move on then to some tips and advice and demonstrations that will hopefully help you to get to that place where you want to try and you are excited to try. But before I do that, I'm just going to pause for a little minute. I'm just going to take a little sip of water and just leave the chat open for any comments or questions or anything that you've just heard there. I know it was quite a lot of talking. So just 1 minute of a wee pause and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about then in this next section is logistics. Now, I am under no illusions that it is very difficult in the early years and first level. Technology is often given to older children. It's focused on a lot more perhaps for older children. A lot of activities and resources are for structured learning as opposed to a play-based environment. But there are 3 logistical things that I think everybody who's using technology in a learning environment needs to think about, but particularly in the early years and first level, these are 3 really common barriers to adopting technology. So if I'm going to say this and this sounds like you, don't worry, because there's lots of people that are in this boat. So the first one is access to devices. It can be super difficult if you've got lots of children on the floor and you only have a limited number of devices. And what I would say about that would be thinking about iPads like any other limited resource you have in your setting. It's about looking at where you can put it to make the best use of it. I've seen environments where children have iPads to use, and that's fine. I've also seen environments where practitioners have iPads to use, and it doesn't occur to them that these could also be used with children. They automatically sort of take ownership of it as a workflow device rather than a multifunctional, multi-purpose device that they can use with children as well. Now, of course, there are some concerns with that, especially if you've got things like email and other sensitive stuff on your iPad. And we'll look at in a moment at a solution for that, or a potential solution for that. But what I would say is, if you are really interested in all this, all you need really to get started is one iPad. That is the starting point. And think about the play experience you want the children to have, and then work backwards, the same as you would with anything else. Put the experience first and the technology second. And from there, you just have to think about how involved you as the educator have or want to be. So it might be that you're doing something one-to-one with a child. It might be that you are scaffolding some play for a group of children with supervision, or it might be that you put your iPad or a couple of iPads in a tough tray or at a table with some chairs, and you set up the experience to be a sort of drop in and step back type situation. All of that is possible, and all of that will depend on what you want the experience to be and how many devices you have access to. Now, we often hear that it would be great for all the children to have their own iPads, which I do agree with, and hopefully with the Scottish Government promise, that might be something that is actually happening soon. But I also do hear this an awful lot from people who absolutely would not have children all sitting down around a table at the same time doing the same thing. And so there's sometimes a little disconnect in understanding what a one-to-one environment would and could look like, and then using the lack of technology as a sort of excuse. I hate to use the word, but as an excuse to not try and to not do anything. I totally get it, right? Like, I've been there. I've run a higher practical filmmaking course with 25 young people and, 5 iPads, and they've all had to make their own films. It's tough, but with some careful planning, knowing what resources you've got, and some determination, you can make things happen. The second thing, logistics-wise, then, is a little bit more tricky. So this is to do with the version of iOS that you have on your iPad. So iOS is just a fancy name for the version of the operating system that your iPad is running. And I know that a lot of early years settings and lower down the school, you've got a lot of sort of older iPads. And this can be a problem because all your iPads can be on a different iOS. And that makes it quite difficult to plan for play experiences because they don't all work exactly the same. So what I would say the best thing to do here is to keep an eye on your iOS, keep them as up to date as possible, but failing that, keep them all on the same one if possible. If you are running the same version of iOS on all of your devices, it's much easier to be able to design a learning experience. And if that's not possible, then make sure you know where the differences are so that you can support the experiences that you're planning. I'll pick back up on this again when we go into the live demos, because I've got 2 different versions of something that I just want to show you some of the little differences that there might be across different versions of iOS. Now, depending on how your devices are managed by IT or the local authority, you might not be able to update your own iOS. It might be something that you have to put in a help desk call about. Now, if you've got any questions about that further and you're in Falkirk, please do get in touch with me and I'll point you in the right direction. If you're in another local authority, find the equivalent of me, whoever that is. If you don't know, drop me an email and I'll see if I can find out. But it's important that you know who that person is that can help you, because this is one of the biggest barriers, is actually being able to get stuff on your iPad. It's the thing that really frustrates people because it doesn't work like your one at home where you can just press something and it happens. This mediation of a managed device is something that comes up time and time again. Now, This takes me on to the last bit, which is the getting apps. Now, the fact that it's a managed device also means that lots of people can't get their own apps as and when they choose on their school iPads or their nursery iPads. Unfortunately, this is not something that is going to go away anytime soon. Devices which are provided by local authorities really do need to be managed for lots and lots of different reasons that I won't go into just now because they're quite boring and whatever. But find out how to get apps on your devices. A lot of the time, as I said, it'll be calling the ICT help desk and making a request. But this is something that you shouldn't necessarily be doing like regularly all the time. You can be quite strategic about this. So thinking about what you want to do in advance, making the request for your iPad or downloading it on your phone or on your iPad at home and just trying it out, making sure it does what you think it does and that it works and it's going to be suitable. And then when you're ready, make one request for a number of apps to your devices so that it's just one job for the person at IT and you're not having to go back and forward, because that's the bit that is a pain and it can take a little bit of time. It's kind of like, if I was going to print out a colouring sheet, I would look at them before I would print them. I wouldn't just print off 500 and hope for the best. There's a little bit of sort of due diligence here with regards to kind of looking at the apps beforehand, checking that they're safe and that they do what you want them to do and that they're going to scaffold or enhance that learning experience. But definitely find out who can get apps on the iPad for you. That's really, really important. So to recap, find out what you've got, find out how it works, and find out who can help you. If you can do those three things, you're totally paving the way for success. It is so easy to fall at this first logistical hurdle. It is a tough one to get over, possibly for some people the biggest one, but it really, really is worth trying. As I say, get in touch if you get any further questions about that, even if it's to try and find out who your development officer is at your local authority and we can get you in touch with them, because we want to try and support you as much as we can to get over that first step, because that's the kind of boring technical bit. That's not the fun play bit. Moving on then, we're going to come to some demonstrations. I'm going to show you some fun stuff and I'm going to be looking at two different types of apps. So we've got what I call, or what everybody calls, core apps, and then we've got additional apps. And before I do that, I just want to make sure that the distinction is super clear for everybody. So core apps are apps that are already on the device as standard. And lots of people overlook these, but there's some really powerful stuff in there and there's some really, really good work that can be done with these. That's where we're going to start today, and we're deliberately going to start there because if you are somebody who cannot at the moment get additional apps on your devices, then you're still going to have lots and lots to go away and play with and explore. Additional apps are exactly what they sound like. They are additional to the baked-in apps on the device. They're the ones that you would get on your phone or your iPad from the App Store. These normally have to be, as I've said, added to your iPad by someone else, usually the device management administrator or the ICT help desk, but that's okay because you're going to check and make sure that you know who's responsible for that. So you hopefully will be able to get additional apps on your device in a more streamlined process, or at least you'll know how the process works. So we're going to start then by looking at some practical stuff. And the first thing that I want to speak about or show you is guided access. So this is the solution, or a potential solution, to the problem of children going in and out of apps. So usually coming out of what you want them to do and going into YouTube. What guided access does is it locks learners into an app. You can also set time limits and sounds to play when they are reaching the end of the time. And that's quite useful because it can act as a sort of mediator. I often think like adults find that they get themselves into a bit of a to and fro with children when it's time to come off of the device. And guided access can really be that mediator, that buffer. Make the device the bad guy that's telling them that time is up. Now, it does work differently on different versions of iOS, but generally speaking, it is the same across the board. I've got an old iPad here. I think it's an iPad 2. It is ancient. I bought it when I first became a teacher over a decade ago. It's stuck on iOS 10. It doesn't go any higher, but it has guided access and it works almost exactly the same as what I'm going to show you today, which is on my brand new connected Falkert device, which is running the most up-to-date version of iOS 16. So if I come out of the presentation then and show you where to find this. So I am on my iPad, as you can see, and I'm going to find the settings cog, which is the little grey one with the cog in the middle. And when I tap on it to open it, on the left, I'm just going to scroll down until I find accessibility. And when I tap on accessibility, it's going to open up all the accessibility options on the right. And you can see I've got all sorts of stuff there: display, text size, touch, switch control, da 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 da. If I go right to the bottom, you'll see that I have guided access. And if I tap on it, it takes me into guided access. Now, at the moment, it is, well, it was switched on. I've just switched it off. You can see that it's switched off. The little toggle is grey. So we're not currently using guided access on this device. And you can see it tells us what it does. Guided access keeps the iPad in a single app and allows you to control which features are available. To start guided access, triple click the home button in the app that you want to use. So the first thing I need to do is switch it on. So I'm just going to toggle that so that it is green. And that's going to open up lots more options for me. The first thing I'm going to do is just go into passcode settings and I'm going to set my guided access passcode. Now, this is not my passcode for my device. This is just the passcode that I'm going to use as the adult to control guided access for the children. So if I tap on set guided access passcode, and I'll just make it super simple just now, and this can be changed as many times as you want if the children get wind of it, or if you want to change it every day so it's different or whatever, that's totally up to you. If I go back, I'm also going to take a look in time limits, and you can see that when the time is up, I can have my iPad play a sound. I think I'll just leave it on Aurora actually, and I can also have it speak or not speak to tell the child that time is up. It does come up on the screen in writing, but not all of our children can read. So we might want to have that verbal confirmation that time is up. And that is all that I have to do. So if I now go out of here and into an app, I'll show you what that does. So if I just open Notes just now, which is an app that we might well use with children, and I press on the home button 3 times quickly. This is a little bit tricky. It can take a little minute to master it, but 1, 2, 3, she didn't get it. 1, 2, 3, she didn't get it again. Right, there we go. Oh, she's done it. Right. Practice that little 3 tap because it is quite tricky. So here we are now, we're in guided access, and you can see here that it's just taken the app and put a little sort of frame over the top of it. And in the bottom left, I have some options. And you can see I can disable other buttons on the iPad. So I can make it so that they can or can't turn the volume up and down. I can make it so they can and can't use the sleep or the wake button. I can actually make it, although I don't know why I would unless I was doing some kind of test, make it so they can't touch anything, like that, like there's no functionality of touch. But most importantly, I can set a time limit and I can do anything up to, well, ages. I'm just going to make it 1 minute just now. And you can see that along the bottom here, I also have the option to circle any areas on the screen that I would like to disable. So this pane on the left, I don't want them going into my other notes and things because that's got some stuff that I need just for me and the kids aren't supposed to see it. So if I just draw around that, a very rough rectangle, it will create a grey area, and that's going to mean that anything in that grey square cannot be used by the pupil. They'll still see it, but they can't use it. So I'm just going to tap on Start in the top right, and you'll see it's asking me to enter the passcode that I set just to get it started. And you can see there it says guided access started 1 minute. Now, if I press this button here now, it doesn't do anything. I can't get out, right? It's totally locked. It tells the child at the top that guided access is enabled and that they've got 48 seconds left. I can't touch anything on the left because that's been greyed out for me, but I can still use all of the tools and functions here in the bit that's not greyed out. So I can draw, and there you go, we've had our sound to warn us that there's 30 seconds left. I can use the tools to draw. These drawing tools are great, by the way. They are in most of the core apps available. What an easy way to just get some colouring in going on the go. So we've got, this is my interpretation of a sun, which is not particularly good. Hopefully we're coming up to the end of our time. So I can draw away, do my thing. And there you can see that my time has expired. So the time limit of 1 minute had been set, and that is now up. I can't do anything now with this iPad. It doesn't matter what button I press, I cannot get off of that screen as the child. I take it back to the adult, and the adult triple clicks. The option to put the passcode comes in. The adult will type in the passcode, and you get put back in to the guided access mode. And from here, you can either give them more time, or you can, in the top left, tap on end, and that's going to end guided access, and you can go back to using the iPad as normal. So a really, really useful feature of the iPad that's built in that I don't think a lot of people actually know about. So really helpful to know, especially if you're using your staff iPad and you don't want children to be able to go into different bits and stuff. It's a bit of a lifesaver in that respect, but also really great for that mediation, and potentially really great as well if you're setting up a station and leaving the children to get on with it. The iPad will be locked into that task you want them to do and that you want them to look at, rather than them going in and out and in and out and, let's be real, ending up on YouTube or on some game. Keeps them focused, keeps them on task, and it keeps your stuff safe. So that is guided access. Hopefully you have found that interesting and useful. We're going to look now at some of the core apps and what we can actually do on them. We're going to just take a quick look at 3, so Pages, Keynote and GarageBand. Now, just like there's not one way to play, and hopefully you agree with me on that, there's not one way to play. There is not just one way to use all of these apps or the functionality within them. So I can't show you everything that it does. So your job here, I guess, is to think about your setting and the children that you work with, and where these tools might have potential for adding additional aspects to play and enhance things that are already going on in your setting. So we're going to start with Pages, right? So if I just go out onto my home screen, I will find Pages, which is the orange app with the little pencil. And you can see here I'm actually already in a document. So I've got lots of different documents here. I can have as many different notebooks, colouring books, workbooks, whatever I want. If I go into this one here that I had open, you can see I've got a blank page at the top. Now, on this version of Pages, it's super, super simple, because the only buttons that children would need to know about are in the top right-hand corner, which is the paintbrush and the plus. So it's plus to add something and the paintbrush to change how it looks. So if I just tap on the plus just now, you'll see that I can add in lots of different things. I can add in photos, I can record audio, I can put in drawings, etc., etc. So let me just actually go along to the next one, which is the little square with a circle in it. You can see I can add shapes. I can also add charts and graphs if I want tables and stuff. Give me just a little second. Right. So I'm just going to add in a little circle here, and you can see, so the plus to add, easy peasy. And then once I've got the circle selected, the paintbrush is going to let me manipulate that object and change what I want. So I can change the colour, I can change if it's got a border or if it's got different shadows, etc., etc. So plus to add and the paintbrush to change. Now, what's really great about the tools that come built into Pages is that they are multifunctional. A lot of people think that Pages is like Word, and why would you have a child play with Microsoft Word? This is a little bit more tactile and interactive, I think, and intuitive as well, actually. So if I just tap on drawing, we've got those same drawing tools that we had before, so you can see that we can change the thickness and the opacity. We can have a whole spectrum of colour to use with our finger just to draw bits and pieces on. Really simple, really easy to use. If I go back to the plus again to add something new, you can see if I tap photo or video, it's linked to my camera roll, so I can go in and I can put in an image that I have saved from before, or a picture that I've taken maybe in the outside area or around about the nursery environment or the primary environment. And a really cool one is the record audio. So it's really simple on iPad, in Pages and in Keynote to add audio quickly and easily. So you can see here when I tapped on it, it gave me an orange bar at the top. There's a little record button at the bottom. If I pressed that and my microphone was on, which it's not because I am currently speaking to you, it would then just be a case of tapping insert in the top right hand corner, and that would add an audio file straight in, and then it's just a case of tapping on the audio file to hear what it says. Now that's really useful when we're thinking about perhaps having conversations with children about what they're drawing, about what they're doing, about what the story is, about who the character is that they've drawn, what the scenario is, explaining their learning, and that is super easy then to share as well and to document. So if your floor books are digital, then obviously that's something that can be incorporated really easily into that. The other thing as well for the add audio is potentially thinking about it as an instructional thing. So if you are setting up the iPads within guided access, you could record what you want the child to do so that their instructions are verbal rather than written, because obviously not all of our children can read yet. So really handy and really useful to know. Now you could start on a blank page like I have done here, but you also might want to think about scaffolding what you're doing in Pages or in Keynote. So there's a really great series of free resources from a woman called Susan Maynard, who makes these Imaginariums, they're called, and they're designed for K-12 in the American system. So everything from, I think, 4 or 5 years old all the way up to 18. And she makes these beautiful books for Pages and for Keynote. And all she's done here is put a bit of scaffolding around what she wants the children to think about and to do. And this is really, really simple to make yourself. So all she's done here is she's actually put in, you can see here, it's just a flat image that she's added in with the plus, added her photo or video, and all she's done there is tapped on the paintbrush, and in the arrange panel, she's just clicked on that little lock, and that's locked that background so that I can't now move it. But what I can do is I can add to it. So I can press plus, I can get my drawing tools out again, and I can start adding to my 5 snowmen, and I can use my fingers to pinch, to get closer or further away. So really simple for me to add on to the top of that scaffolded page. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of Pages. These Imaginariums, I will give you the link to Susan's Twitter so that you can find them for yourself and download them. You don't have to log in or anything. She's got them all just on a Google Drive for you to download if you need them. I'm just going to pop out of here and into Keynote, or back into Keynote, because that's where I've been already. And just to show you that it's almost exactly the same. When you're using the core apps, most of the stuff is the same. What you'll notice along the top here is exactly what I was speaking about the different versions of iOS, right? So this is the new version of Keynote. That was the old version of Pages. And if you look at the top right, hopefully you'll see the difference straight away. We're missing the plus. What they've done in the new versions is they put all of the additional stuff at the top in the middle. So you can see there, I can put in my video, my recorded audio, a live video, my drawing, whatever. I've also got my shapes as well if I need them, etc., etc. So the plus stuff is no longer in a tab, it's just all there at the top. And then I've got my paintbrush as usual, just underneath that little red record button there. Now, the difference between using Keynote for something and Pages for something is just simply a case of functionality. So they do a lot of the same things, but Keynote gives you a little bit more options of fun stuff to play about with. And I'm just going to open this document here called 30 Days of Animation. So you'll probably recognise the style already. This is also a piece of Susan's work, and it's a really beautiful, just a little deck that has provocations for children to animate. So a rocket landing on the moon, a hole in one, boat sailing, etc., etc. Now, we're going to very quickly do this because I don't think that you will believe how easy this is to do, right? So what we're being asked to do here is to have frogs jumping in the swamp. So the first thing that I'm going to need is a frog. So if I had the plus, I would go into the plus, but I'm in the new version, so I'm just going to go across the top, and I could choose to draw the frog if I wanted to, or I could choose to explore some of these shapes. You can see that we've got geometry, we've got objects, we've got nature, we've got food. We've also got a little magnifying glass. And this is super handy for children because if I cannot type yet, the keyboard on the iPad has a built-in dictation function. So if you look at the spacebar, just to the left, in between the spacebar and the emoji, the wee smiley face, there's a little microphone. And if I tap on that microphone, it takes me into dictation mode. And actually, you can see, I didn't think it would do that because I was using the microphone, but it has. Let me just go back and say, frog. And there we have our frog. And we can just tap on that and put it in. And we can use the little handles to resize it. And again, just constantly a reminder to change something is the paintbrush. So we're going to tap on the paintbrush and we're going to make our frog green. I think we're just going to go standard froggy green. So maybe give him a little bit of a fancy gradient here. There we go. And that is our frog that is going to jump. Now, to make him jump, all I have to do is tap on him so that he is highlighted. And then a new bar pops up across the top. And if I go to the right and look for animate, I can choose to go into the animation mode, which is going to bring a big blue banner across the top, and it's telling me that I am animating. And there's loads of stuff to experiment with in here and play with. It is super, super fun. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to do add action in the middle. And I'm going to look at this one that comes up called create path, which is the one with the arrows pointing in all different directions, the very first one after none. And what that's going to do is it's going to put a little red dot in the middle of my froggy. And I am going to move the object to draw a motion path that the frog's going to follow. And you'll see the red line as I start to move it. So he's going to go down here and he's going to jump up. He's going to jump down and he's going to jump up and he's going to jump down. And eventually he's going to land on the log. Really easy to do with my finger, really simple. And you can see that I get a little preview of the motion that my frog is going to make. And I can do it again and again if I want. I can clear it, I can do it again. But once I'm happy, I just have to tap on done. And then it takes me back into the regular animation. I'm just going to do done on the top left. And we can see there if we press play, It'll take a wee minute to get started. But our frog is now jumping in the swamp. We're actually maybe not exactly what the task is doing because it's asked for frogs, plural, but there he is jumping around in the swamp. So easy. Think about the storytelling potential, the imaginative play potential that you have here, and then coupled with that idea of maybe adding in a record audio to tell the story of the frog, you're then taking it to another level. So much for them to do and to explore and to play with. So Pages in GarageBand, they're much of a much. Again, I'll give you the details for Susan's Twitter so that you can download this animation pack if you want. But we're going to move on and have a look, or rather a listen, some more noisy stuff. So we know that children enjoy being noisy. I also enjoy being noisy. Musical instruments are expensive and often have very small parts that can potentially be quite dangerous. We have an entire plethora of musical instruments for our children to play with on the iPad in GarageBand. GarageBand, if I just open it just now and let it load, is one of the ones that people steer away from because it can be quite intimidating. It doesn't look child friendly. It looks very much like it's for adults. But it is actually really easy to play about with it. You can't break it, so you might as well just start tapping stuff and seeing what happens. So we're going to make a little song today. Excuse me. And to get started, hopefully you can see across the top where we would start. Because we want to add something new, we're going to press on the plus. And that's going to take us into GarageBand. Now we're going to move over to tracks rather than live loops. And we can see in here we have got absolutely loads of musical instruments to choose from. So unless anybody wants to suggest which musical instrument in the chat, I'm going to just pick one. Let's go for piano. Everybody likes playing on a piano, right? Keyboard. And all I have to do is tap on it and it opens up a piano for me, and I've now got a piano that I can play. I can also record that little song if I want. So I just tap on the big red record button. It's going to count me in. And then just tap on stop to stop it when I am finished. Now, if you're using this and that tick tock noise is annoying you, it's this little blue triangle that stops it. Often kids playing with musical instruments is not the annoying thing, it's the metronome that's annoying. So all you have to do is just tap on the little blue triangle at the top there and it makes that tick noise go away. So I can see that I've now got my little piano track. I'm no Mozart, but I've got my piano track there. Listen back to it. But I can also go back and add in more instruments if I want, more layers. And what I want to show you now is the beat sequencer. So on the drum, this is super fun. So on the drum, there is at the bottom a little square with lots of little dots in it. If you tap on that, you will get, hopefully, eventually, the beat sequencer. And all the children have to do here is tap on the coloured squares and you will see what happens. And I continue to add things and make my own little beat. If I tap on record, I can also record my song, and that can go on for as long as I want. You can hear my piano in the background. So lots and lots and lots to explore and play with there. And what's really nice about GarageBand is that we can actually save and share those songs. So we can go back into our songbook and you can see my song 4 is the one I've just made. I can tap on that. And if I tap on share, my iPad's got a bit slow because I'm connected to this meeting. It wouldn't normally be this slow. I can save it as a song, and that's something that I can share with the wider ELCC community, or with the school, or with parents, or put in a digital learning journal, or whatever, a digital floor book, whatever it is that you want. So really fun, built-in app that you can use straight away with your children, even if you've not like that should be there straight out the box. You shouldn't have to request that from your local authority. So just a couple of core ones there then to play with. Looking then at another option that you potentially have, browser-based fun stuff. So not all iPads will obviously be connected to the internet. One of the benefits of the core apps is that they work without the internet, by the way, which is super, super useful, especially if you are in a setting that doesn't have great connection. If you do have great connection and you are able to use the internet, there are a couple of real browser-based fun things to explore. I'm going to keep with the theme of making noise. And I'm just going to show you this really, really fun one called Chrome Music Lab. This is available on a browser. It's actually available on any browser, so you could be doing this on an iPad, on a laptop, desktop, like whatever. If I just go out of here and go into Safari, you'll see I've already got it loaded up. And this is just a bunch of little toys, really, like musical toys online, essentially, that I can explore and play with. They don't give you any instructions on how to use them, which I think is quite nice because it is about exploring and playing. If I just go into the little monkey at the top, and I'll show you a couple of the sort of things that you can do. So this is a rhythm game or play toy situation. And if I just press on play, you'll see it's going to give me 2 little characters. And if I tap on them, they will play their instruments, which is nice. But if I tap on these dots down here, they will begin to build a rhythm, which when I then press play, they will play. And you can see, obviously, we've got the colours in there, we've got the shapes in there. There's quite a lot going on, even though it's quite a simple little tactile play thing. We can also change the monsters by using the direction arrows, which changes who is playing and what kinds of instruments they're playing. My nephew absolutely loved this one. He played with this for ages and ages and ages. So that's a really good one on there. The other one that I really love on Chrome Music Lab is the one just below the monkey. It's got the little circle and the triangle. This one's called Kandinsky, and it is about not bringing your drawings to life, making your drawings listenable. You'll see what I mean when I start to do it. So I'm just going to use my finger and I'm just going to draw a picture. So this is meant to be a Christmas tree, right? And maybe have a little person. And you can see as I'm adding the different bits, it's making a noise. And what I can do when I press play is hear all of those noises together. And I can then continue to draw and the sounds will change. So which changes the quality of the sound. That was got a nice Christmassy jingle bell there. And that's one I really, really like. I think that one's super, super fun. Like, what does my drawing sound like? Like, that's such an interesting, provocation. I think that's really, really nice. And in the chat there, I can see that I told you at the start that all of my family are early years educators. That's my sister saying that. My nephew says that he told me that, and he did tell me that. So that one's from Sid. The other one that I was going to show you that's browser-based that I didn't put on the slide is called Blob Opera, and I hope this is going to work. This can be a little bit temperamental when you're on a meeting, because there's obviously 45 people on this meeting and da-da-da-da-da. So we'll give it a try. We'll see if it works. Hopefully it will, but who knows? This is all just about touching these little blobs so that they make music and they sing together. So I'm just going to tap on resume, and you can see my blobs are ready to sing, and all I have to do is take my finger and move them and they will begin to sing with each other. And we've got the idea of high and low. There are different pitches as well, and we can make them do all sorts of stuff. What's super fun about this one is that there is a Christmas mode. So if you're thinking of something like, where could I start? What could I do? Like, oh, maybe just show some kids some stuff, maybe tomorrow or next week. This is a great place to start because it's on the browser, so you don't need to download it, and it has Christmas mode. So down in the bottom right-hand corner, if I tap on this little Christmas tree, it is going to put all their little Christmas hats on, and I can choose a Christmas song for them to sing, and I can continue to manipulate them with my finger to change what's happening. So let's go for Hark the Herald Angels Sing, my favourite Christmas song. So they're going to get started. And I can move them. And it's so, I'm having fun doing that. Like, I'm going to stop now and make them be quiet, but I could sit and do that for ages. It's such an actual like mindfulness, relaxing thing to do, and it is so, so fun. So that's Blob Opera. If you just Google it, it will come up. It's a Google Arts and Culture app. It's not really an app, it's like an online app. So that's there for you to use tomorrow if you wanted to. But coming out of the browser-based ones, I'm going to go back into this keynote presentation, and I'm going to look at some of the additional apps. So remember, additional apps were ones that we wouldn't necessarily have on our iPad as standard, but that we would have to ask for to be put on by our device management administrator. There are thousands and thousands of additional apps that are useful and interesting. A lot of them are games, and just wanting you to think back to that idea of consumer versus creator. Obviously, games have a place, and you're not necessarily a consumer when you are playing a game, but I've particularly specifically chosen apps that are not game-based and that involve the child doing something actively. So you might have heard of these before. They're very, very commonly used. Well, two of them are very commonly used apps in early years and early level, and one just wee curveball. So we've got Chatterkids and Draw and Tell, which are picture-based or manipulation, drawing, graphics-based stuff. And then we've got My Very Hungry Caterpillar, AR. The AR standing for augmented reality. Now, don't panic. It's fine. It's just to show you how easy it is to begin with augmented reality in the early and first levels. I'm not going to demo these live because they are noisy apps, but I'm going to show you a couple of videos that I have made that hopefully will show you how they work. So we're going to start with Chatterkids. Now, annoyingly, Chatterpix Kids is what it comes up as, but it's called ChatterKid when you look at it on the iPad. So you can see here, I just go in, I can either take a picture or I can go through my photo gallery. And what this is going to do is it's going to let me make a picture talk. So I've chosen a picture here of Frida Kahlo. I'm just going to pinch to get her in the right spot. And when I'm happy, I'm going to tap next. And then I need to find her mouth and draw a line over it.
1, go!
And then I hit record and I can make her say anything that I want. So I could be telling a story about her. I could be describing what I think she looks like.
Hello, my name is Frida Kahlo.
And then I can look back at that by pressing play and listen to it. And then I can add in a bunch of fun stuff, a bunch of stickers and filters and all sorts of things. And I think this is a really nice, easy, simple one to use. I think it's really particularly interesting, maybe for exploration of like social roles and social play. And obviously lots of imaginative play as well. This could be a character that they've drawn that they are making then talk. It could be a well-known character
Hello,
that
my
they
name
know
is
and
Frida
love,
Kahlo,
who's
and
responding
I am
to
an
a different
artist, and I have
situation.
beautiful flowers in my hair.
And there you go. So that can then be saved and it can be shared again to a floor book. It can be shared with family. It can be shared wherever else you do sharing of the stuff that's happening on the floor within your education community. Really simple, really easy. We see a lot of people using it. Moving on then, we've got Draw and Tell, which if the Pages thing or the Keynote thing kind of freaked you out and you thought it was a bit too busy, this is maybe a good compromise for that. So what Draw and Tell does is it allows you to either start with a blank page or with a picture that you've made, and you can add in various different things. So I'm going to play this, but it's quite loud, so I'll just play it for a minute to show you this in action. So you can see this tune is for the We're Primary Children if I'm playing it now, just so you know. And we can choose from the stickers at the bottom, size things, add in additional stuff. We can use the paintbrush, we can use the crayons. I'm actually just I'm gonna stop it. Oh, I'm just gonna stop it there for a minute because that tune is driving me crazy. You probably want them to have headphones in or volume down for that one, because that one, it just goes on and on and on. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. But they can do lots of stuff there. The great thing that they can also do is there's a big microphone button at the top, and they can then explain their picture, which again, really nice just for getting them involved in documenting their play, documenting what they're doing, what they're up to. That can then be shared with families, or it can be shared wider within the community. Don't forget about QR codes. It can be put up around the nursery for other children to scan and look at the picture and listen to the video, all sorts of things. So just an alternative, maybe if Pages was a bit scary and a bit too much going on there, this is a really simple, straightforward way into that sort of picture manipulation type of play. Next then is Very Hungry Caterpillar AR. So what this does is this brings the Very Hungry Caterpillar into your nursery. So you can see this is my desk area. And all I'm doing is holding my iPad up and looking around physically with the iPad to find the caterpillar. And you can see the physical movement brings me closer or further away from him. And there's lots of things that I can do. My main goal, as you can see in the top left, is to try and feed him. So to figure out how I get the apples or the blueberries or the pizzas or whatever it is that he needs to eat to him. I can also play with the other stuff though. I can play with the pond, I can bring out the bubbles from the little play box. And once he's fed up and is all fed up, not fed up, and his food bar is full. We send him over to the little log by tapping on it, and he goes away for his wee night's sleep. And he'll get up the next day and he is going to be hungry again. So we've then got to find the stuff for him to eat. And by the way, it's you tap on it and it'll drop the fruit for him. He can go around, he can do that. If another child was also playing, that they could hold the caterpillar in their hand. It's in front of whatever the child is holding up the iPad in front of. So it brings the caterpillar into your nursery. How exciting, especially if you're reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, that they can actually interact with the character from the book and look after him. Please, 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 a big, big, big favour, if you do use this, please can you let me know, because I have never actually fed him all the way to the point where he goes into the chrysalis. So I would really be interested to know what happens when it gets to that point. So if you and your children do discover that, I would absolutely love to know what happened. So that's Very Hungry Caterpillar AR. Now, that's all the stuff I've got to show you. You'll probably be glad because I've just showed you 1,000,001 different things. There's lots and lots and lots that I could continue to show you. However, we just don't have the time. And we're also bearing in mind that fact that I said before about how there is not just one way to play. There is not just one way to use all these apps. There are thousands of apps. There are thousands of features on the iPad. What you really need to do is go away and explore and play for yourself. I would really encourage you to do that. So we're almost at the end, folks, but I just want to give you some final thoughts from people who have been working with technology and young children for a while. So this first one is from Julian Grenier, who actually was involved in reforming the early years policy and curriculum documents in England. And what they've done is they've actually taken out explicit references to certain benchmarks of things that children should be able to do with technologies by certain ages and stages. And he kind of makes the point here that it should be integrated into what we're doing. It should be being used to enhance play and learning and what is going on already. There are so many different ways we can do that. And maybe having super rigid benchmarks doesn't really work if we're just trying to integrate it into the play-based, gloriously messy environment of early years and first level. That being said, if you are interested in benchmarks, do get in touch, because there is obviously documentation about first and second level benchmarks that I can point you in the right direction of. But isn't he absolutely right here? Children who are fascinated to see a snail in the garden might use the magnification app on the tablet to see its features in more detail. They might take photos and videos as ways of recording their play. They might capture a dance that they've made up or tell a story. They can switch between drawing with crayons and drawing with their finger on a tablet. Isn't that what we would like our environments to look like? The technology just totally integrated into the life and soul of what is going on already with the play and with the learning. The next one then from Emma Gotto, who writes a blog actually about her experiences with teaching early years and technology. You can see here she's reinforcing that idea about balance. She doesn't want children to spend all their time on a screen any more than she would want children to spend all their time playing with the sand. And I think that's really, really important. It is about balance. At the moment, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because some children at home, their balance is out of whack because there's a lot of screen time going on at home. And then maybe at nursery, there's not very much at all. And it's about trying to find that balance of where's the sweet spot, where does it work and where does it work well, and making sure that we are encouraging them to engage in activities that allow them to be creators rather than consumers. And just a final one from Emma again, just making a really good point about the classroom being full of learning tools. This one's more about sort of the justification within documentation and policy, and even maybe among your colleagues for using digital tools. So, she points out quite rightly that we don't need to justify the use of crayons or chalk in order to recognise their value technology is the same. Like, we don't have to justify why we're using it when we see that it can be used and it is benefiting and it is enhancing. I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind. Like, the justification, and it goes back to this thing about Encanto and the Luisa sort of character and the pressures. Like, yes, we have to have justification for what we're doing. Yes, things have to have impact. They have to be well thought out. They have to be well reasoned. They have to be proven to be making a difference. But we don't do that for every other physical object. It's about the learning. It's not about the technology. And that's what we need to focus on when we come up against our naysayers or our technophobes or the people who want to take the wind out of our sails. The last one then, not the last one then, the next bit then is just these two people. So I've talked about Susan a lot. She really is great. I don't know her personally, just in case you were wondering. She is on Twitter at @shmaynor. She is incredibly generous with her resources. You can download all of those Imaginariums. You can download that keynote for the animations. I would really, really highly suggest going and having a look. She is brilliant. She's all about creativity. And I think that comes across really, really well. Her stuff's gorgeous and it's really easy to use. So I would recommend giving her a wee follow. The other person is Mark Withersea, which is not actually his name. His name is Mark Folder, but Mark Withersea. He is an early years educator in England. He is an Apple Distinguished Educator. And big, big thanks to Mark, because a lot of the stuff from today actually comes from a presentation that Mark usually gives, the research stuff at the start. So if you're interested in that research stuff and you want to know more about that, Mark is the person to talk to. But he is great on Twitter, loads of ideas, always posting stuff. He's the most enthusiastic person you'll ever meet about early years. Definitely follow him and see if he's delivering anything. Go to it, because he is great. I would highly, highly recommend. Some people find listening to others quite difficult to retain information. So if it's a book that you're after, there are 3 that I would highly recommend that are available for free as Apple Books. I unfortunately can't give you them because you can't share an Apple Book, you have to download it. This is one to maybe get on your phone or your personal iPad, because books on a managed device can be a bit of a pain. But 3 really, really useful books. Creativity Challenges for iPad by Erica Mosser. Loads of great ideas for early learners and how to get them doing creative stuff. If the augmented reality, AR, Hungry Caterpillar excited you, then everyone can get Augmented Early Learners. Teacher's Guide is a great place to look for other things like the Very Hungry Caterpillar AR, and loads of little tasks and activities that children can do that get them thinking about AR and manipulating their environment digitally. And then finally, the Creativity with iPad in the Early Years by Pamela Algie, or Algie it might be. Really useful, just kind of documents her journey of trying to do creative stuff with the iPad in the early years. I know that lots of you are crying out for voices that have similar experiences to you, that work in the same environments as you. These are sort of definitely Erica and Pamela, 2 solid voices that you can kind of get in touch with and read alongside and stuff. So if you're not sure how to get those, you can drop me a wee email and I can explain it to you. But it's just a case of going into books on your iPhone or on your iPad and searching the name, and you should be able to download it for free. So we are coming to the very end, and I just want to, before I ask you for your formal feedback, ask you for a bit of feedback in the chat. So I am a big fan of the Tim Minchin musical Matilda, even though my family will not go to the cinema to see it with me, and I'm saying that deliberately because 2 of them are on the call today. He has a song in that basically talks about when you're trying to make a change, it just takes one thing, just one thing. A really small action can lead to a big reaction. And I love the quote, every day starts with the tick of a clock. So with that in mind, I would like to ask you in the chat, please, of all the things you've seen today and all the things I've showed you, what's just one thing that you're going to keep and take away and go, I'm going to look at that, or I'm going to look into that more, or I'm going to try that? What was just one thing that really, really struck a chord with you this evening? And I'll give you a few moments to have a think and pop that in the chat. So a lot for guided access, which is, yeah, I was expecting that. That's good. Caterpillar AR, nice. Blob Opera's been a big hit as well. Excellent. We'll just, yeah, the Kandinsky, Stacey, that Kandinsky one is my absolute favourite, man. Helena, the Pages thing, I know, like that's the thing about it. These are the apps that are already on there when you switch the iPad on out of the box, and people just don't think. And fair enough, like, you know, but knowing that it's there and knowing what it can do is dead interesting. Guided access browser apps, Caterpillar, yeah, loving it, great. Excellent. Thank you so much, folks. Couple of people asking in the chat for a copy of the slides. That's absolutely fine. Now, I'm not trying to bribe you. However, the way that you're going to get the slides is by filling in this feedback form. So the feedback form has a box at the end, and you can let me know in there if you want me to send you the slides, if you want me to send you anything else. But most importantly, if you're interested in further sessions that are specifically for early and first level settings, please mention that or make suggestions in the final box. We are always looking to run CPD and professional learning that supports what people are looking for rather than just trying to guess at what people want. Obviously, this has been about play. If there's anything else that's specifically early years or first level that you would be interested in knowing more about or finding out about, please pop that in that last box. I'm just going to get the link for you so that if you've not got another device, you can get it from the chat. There we go. Right. Yeah, Alison, make your CLPL accessible for folk outside Falkirk. We already do. We're always let our CLPL be available to everybody. You've got to share the knowledge and the challenges as well. Okie doke. Hopefully you've all managed to get that feedback form. The last thing that remains to say then is thank you. You can contact me on Twitter at DigiLearnFalk or through other channels, email, Glow, and all the rest of it. I'd be delighted to hear from any of you. All I want to say is, if you have been waiting for permission, I am now formally giving you permission to go and play with digital tools. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll be sticking about in case anybody wants to ask specific questions. But night, night. Thanks for coming.